Hello, everyone. This is Denise again from Color Market, your everyday store for everything healthy. Today, we are very happy to have with us Blake. He's the founder of Booch Kombucha. So, just a small story. I was at a organic fair one day, and in Dubai in the hot summer heat, and that was how I found Booch Kombucha because it was really hot and I wanted a healthy beverage, and there they were. Had my first taste of, I believe it was raspberry ginger. It was really good and it almost felt like a bubbly summer drink. So that was how, Carlo got introduced to Bush Kombucha. So we're super excited to have Blake here today to tell the story behind the brand. So I think first question, Blake, I have for you, just before we start on everything, is what
Sure.
exactly is kombucha?
Okay. So, I mean, kombucha has been around for thousands of years. It's a heavy debate as to where it originates from. There's communication and conversation around it coming from China, coming from Eastern Europe, etc. Essentially, it's fermented tea. To put it very, very short and very, very simply. It's a green tea, black tea, which has been fed sugar to then obviously ferment through the implementation of SCOBY, which is a basically probiotic and biotic
Mm.
bacteria, essentially. And then
And why would people drink kombucha, right? So what are some benefits other than taste, I assume?
So obviously kombucha, any sort of fermented product contains probiotics, lactobacillica, good things for the gut, shall we say. I'm obviously not going to make any medical claims, but fermented product traditionally contains good things for the gut. And that's obviously where the concept of this business comes from. It's love your guts, and that's where why it's so important for Booch and for kombucha to be around.
So, if you don't mind me asking, I've looked through your profile. You have many, many years as a marketing and brand professional, right? As a your industry expertise is in corporate. How did you come about Bush Kombucha, and what made you decide to take on this as a project?
So, two of my closest friends actually originally found the business. I was obviously a part of the crew tasting the product. I have always sought products that are good for the gut, whether it's kefir, whether it's kombucha, or other fermented products. And it was through obviously my friendship and journey with the original two creators of the brand that it kind of came across my desk, and they were like, "We want you to carry it on and continue to drive the business." And they handed it over to me, and here we are today.
That's that.
Yep.
How long ago was this?
So we originally started the tasting and the really sort of creation of the individual flavors back in 2015, 2016.
Oh, wow.
It was a long process behind closed doors, obviously, to kind of get it to the point where we can register the product, we can bring the product to market, and it's something that obviously that we're proud of.
So, I want to take you back to 10 years ago when, your friends were like, come and taste test this, include you in the process. Like, it's almost like, they have a baby and you're the uncle, right? The friend who came and played with the
Pretty much,
baby and the friend.
the
Pretty much,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the crazy uncle. And then suddenly they say, please adopt my child, take Booch away. Really, what made you decide, right? Was it more commercial? Like, was it like you really like kombucha and probiotics? Was it, you're looking for a side hustle? So what was it that actually made you say, fine, I will now adopt this baby and make it mine?
I mean, I've always been a entrepreneur. I've always, had my own businesses, whether I've built them and sold them, or whether I've purchased them, built them, and then sold them. But this product, this business, it just spoke differently to me, to be honest. I was a consumer of the product right from the beginning. I didn't necessarily like the manufacturing process because obviously when you clean the scobies and when you treat the actual scobies, they're quite slimy. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. if that turns into this amazing product, cool. But for me, it really was an emotional connection to the brand and to the product. I consume the product on a daily basis. I see the benefit to me personally, and it's through that personal benefit that allows me, obviously, to talk about the product, talk about how it makes me feel. Obviously, it's different to each person. But that's why I took on the business. I agreed with the branding. I agreed with the messaging behind the brand, the product itself, and what it did for me.
Would you describe for our viewers what kombucha makes you feel? It sounds so emotional, yeah?
It does, right?
I'm like, it's a
Well,
love story. Okay, let's hear
right?
this.
No. So for me, kombucha really, it's not just a refreshing drink. It's not just something that you would consume during the summertime. It's not something that, you would consume on a weekend. It's a product that you can consume every single day. It's a product that, has, because of the way that we manufacture the product, it's all small batch. So when we talk about small batch production, there's a slight differentiation in flavor, and it's ever so slight, but it just means that each batch has its own personality. Each batch has its own flavor and taste. Sometimes, for example, hibiscus, which I'm drinking today, oddly, plug. But hibiscus is an example which I'm consuming today. During the winter, it's a slightly different flavor as opposed to during the summer, because the fermentation process is obviously based on temperature. So, in our warehouse, we maintain a very specific and set temperature level. But obviously, as the product comes out and it gets fermented, it gets tested and updated. Dependent upon the weather, the temperature varies ever so slightly, and that creates that different personality in each product. So for me, it's not just obviously the difference in flavor of each small batch, but it's also the benefits that it gives me. It helps me in terms of my gut health. It gives me a happy gut. And obviously there's that saying of, your gut is the second brain, as some doctors have said. I can't remember the name of the author off the top of my head, but they wrote a book about mind-gut connection. But for me, it's very true. What I consume, it makes me feel great, different. That's why obviously choosing good quality food that you consume, good quality beverages, and that's why Booch Kombucha for me is such a staple piece in my diet each and every day.
Oh, we did have our very first podcast on the mind gut connection with Aleka. So for you viewers interested, please go have a look. We said drink kombucha, for example, in that episode as well. So excited to have you here to actually talk about what kombucha is. Yeah, we launched Color Market maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, and kombucha was one of the highlights, and people started buying it. So it's really good to have this episode to actually explain what it is. You talk about kombucha almost like you're brewing beer or wine or something, you're giving it personality and individuality. And is the process the same? Like, could you maybe explain to us the process of brewing kombucha?
Sure. I wouldn't necessarily associate it with alcohol. I'm just going to kind of caveat that there. Obviously, when it comes to the process of brewing and manufacturing kombucha, it's slightly different. Obviously, the first phase is where you implement the tea and then a sugar or sweet substance. Some companies use date sugar or date syrup. Some use raw sugar, caster sugar or white sugar. There's multiple different ways that you can obviously do the foundational step. But when you ferment tea and sugar with the SCOBY actually eats the sugar content. So on completion of sort of phase one, you test it and there is no sugar content, because that's what the fermentation piece is, right? It's where the tea and the sugar essentially gets sort of eaten and consumed by the SCOBY. And that's why at the end of fermentation stage one, you essentially have a mother SCOBY and a baby SCOBY. So that's how you procreate to make multiple SCOBYs that you can obviously expand.
Before we continue, what exactly is a SCOBY? right? If you could describe to viewers who might not know what a SCOBY is.
Sure. So a SCOBY is essentially a bacteria, for want of a better word. What it obviously stands for is symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. It looks a little bit like, it's very bad description, but it looks a little bit like snot, essentially. But
Oh
it's
no, I
a
was gonna go for mushroom, but okay.
mushroom. I mean, let's go with that. Let's go with that one. We'll just edit what I
Or
said out
just
of the way.
delete.
But essentially, it's a bacteria substance that is sort of semi firm or semi form. When you place the SCOBY into the actual substance, it starts to obviously eat at the sugar content, consuming all the sugar, and then that creates a secondary SCOBY that sits underneath. So we essentially obviously take that out, separate them, and that's how we procreate to then obviously be able to produce more and more kombucha. So that's essentially stage one of the fermentation phase. The secondary stage, which we do with some of our flavors, is where we put fresh fruits. All of our products, all of our flavoring that goes into our kombucha is natural. So if it's raspberry, we actually get physical raspberries and we crush them, and kind of like your, crushing grapes as an example. If it's ginger, it's actual ginger, fresh ginger that we can purchase in the market, across the board for all of our flavors. We implement a second fermentation phase, which is where we put the fruits and the ginger, for example. The SCOBY and the tea essentially eats the fructose.
Okay.
So it draws out a much stronger, more sort of fresh flavor of the raspberry, as opposed to that sort of raspberry juice type flavor, as if you were just to kind of blend a handful of raspberries and then drink it straight. So that's essentially the second stage for the fermentation. Obviously, throughout the entire phase, we're monitoring the pH levels. We're monitoring, obviously, all the required pieces when it comes to making kombucha to make sure that the end product is something that we're proud to bring to market. It's something that is as natural as physically possible. And also, each batch has that sort of flavor story to tell when you consume it.
You know, you should probably put the batch date there, and then, maybe people can bid for like the really good batches, like we
Right?
do with wine. Yeah, for sure. Um, how long does this process take, from the beginning of brewing the tea to eventually bottling it?
Sure. So again, it depends upon the season of the year. So in the summer, our period is a lot faster, normally by anywhere of up to about 7 days. So our fermentation, again, some companies, dependent upon the flavor, they'll ferment stage one for a lot shorter to make it sweeter. Whereas we ferment to make sure that our sugar content is out the window, and then it's a nice, strong, flavored kombucha that really provides character. So the first stage for us is normally between 8 to 12 days, depending upon the season. So in summer, it's a lot shorter. In winter, it's a lot longer. Even though obviously we keep our warehouse very carefully sort of temperature monitored. Unfortunately, for some reason, we haven't quite worked this out yet. But the season creates a differentiation in the fermentation stage. And then
Which
stage two
season
is about
do you
7 days.
better?
Um,
The
I
taste, I
like,
guess.
yeah, so I actually like winter, because it sort of, it gives that much longer drawn out, it gives you a slightly different, slightly more intense flavor of the kombucha. Whereas in the summer, it's very, very quickly produced. It's still delicious, but you can definitely taste the difference in flavor from summer to winter, and obviously from batch to batch, as I mentioned.
I love this. It's almost like you're a connoisseur of kombucha, and now I'm learning so much more. Like every bottle tastes different. It tastes different in different stages, different seasons. Now I have to really appreciate the kombucha I drink and,
But
and try to remember it. Yeah.
But it's also a really good way to tell whether the product that you're consuming is a top quality kombucha. If it's slightly different each time you taste it, it means that, there really is that character. It's a small batch, it's handmade. When it starts to taste consistent across the board, it's not how we make kombucha. We like to make sure it's small batch and there's character in every bottle and there's flavor,
Yeah.
and that's how we roll.
That's how you roll. For those who haven't tried kombucha, it is also quite bubbly. So I assume the bubbles come from the process of fermentation, or do you also add carbonation, whatever you call it,
Carbonation.
carbonation? Yes.
Yeah. So naturally, when you ferment a product, there is always going to be some form of bubbles or some form of carbonation, because that's what happens when you make fermentation. So, as an example, I'm sure everybody at some point has made sourdough in their life. And when you're
You just
creating,
forget about your.
like, we'll go with this because I think during COVID, everybody was making kombucha, or everybody was making sourdough, or
I
everybody
was
was making,
actually, funnily.
right? Yeah, yeah. So when you activate a fermentation process, it creates air bubbles. It creates carbonation because it means that the fermentation process has been activated. So naturally, when you ferment something, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's kefir, kombucha, whether it's sourdough, there will always be that bubbly piece because that's when the fermentation is activated. So we add a little bit of extra carbonation, because again, it adds that character to the drink. I find that, and again, we've market tested this across, I would say, probably close on about 12 months at the very beginning when we were creating the product. And something with a slight carbonation, a little bit of a bubble to it, again, adds more character, adds that little bit of pop that kind of hits the taste buds in the right way. Our product has had much higher consumption and much higher favorability with that little bit of bubble to it. When it's flat, we find that in the market, they think that there isn't that fermentation there and there isn't that character there. So that's part of our, obviously, manufacturing process. Having said that, as I mentioned, sometimes in summer, because it's a much faster fermentation process, we don't need to add any carbonation because it's there. That character's there.
Okay. So for the local market, I guess UAE is not just, it's a lot of expats, yeah,
Yeah.
obviously. Would you say, if you talk about the Emiratis or people from the region, the GCC region, how have they taken to kombucha? Have you had to do a lot of education, introduction? Is the taste, I guess, catered to the GCC crowd, or what's your marketing and branding, I guess, for kombucha,
Yes.
which at least in the region?
I mean, I'm going to use this as an example, but all of our labels are bilingual. And that's something that we've spent a lot of time. Obviously, there is certain elements that are requirements by the by Dubai municipality, but we obviously have ingredients that are bilingual, but our branding is across the board bilingual to ensure that we obviously cater for the GCC market. Having said that, we do have a lot of local clientele that love our product and love to consume the product. We're currently in the process, don't tell my sales manager I said this, but we're currently in the process of working on a flavor that's very specific to the local market, as a special teaser for Ramadan and for that season. So
Do you know
we're
what flavor,
already,
or it's
it's a secret. I'll get in trouble for that bit. But it's again, it's hibiscus, that we've got key flavors that seem to be a really big pop for set markets. So pineapple chili as an example, which is one that we launched. I love the flavor. I wasn't necessarily expecting it would land for the Western market, but definitely there is sort of, the Indians love it. The obviously Asians love the flavor as well. It's each of our portfolio of flavors speaks to a different style of flavor palette. And by doing that, it means that our products cater across market.
I'm just looking at our dashboard right now. I think the most popular flavor so far is hibiscus. and a lot of our customers are
Favorite.
local. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
cool.
So, what's next, I guess, for Booch Kombucha? Are you thinking more types of packaging? Are you thinking geographic expansion? Are you thinking more flavors? What's the next step for you?
So we're actually looking at a range of new flavors coming to market. Our R&D team has been working quite hard through the summer to essentially be able to pull out a range of special products, shall we say, that are quite interesting to come, which I'm a little bit excited about. Plus, we've also got seasonal specials that will come as well in the new season. Having said that, we're also looking at different packaging. I know that offline you and I have spoken about that, and I'm going to leave that there. And then also we are looking at regional expansion as well. We're currently in conversations with some other GCC countries. So fingers crossed things start to move and you'll be able to see our product in more locations. But for now, we're available in every 7 emirate at the moment.
That's very nice. Has it been tough, I guess, to set up manufacturing and brew this locally and get, I guess, the halal certification, all the operations of this? Has it been quite challenging or a walk in the park?
Um,
I like the laugh. It's
yeah,
like, sounds painful.
my hat is currently hiding my loss of hair, and there's a few more grays under there. Let's put it that way. No, listen, I've been in this country for 16 years. I love the GCC region as a whole, the character and opportunity that it provides. In terms of manufacturing, I'm not going to lie, it's definitely been challenges. There's been some very big challenges. We unfortunately were hit by the floods as one example, and we pretty much lost everything and had to
Oh,
and had to start production, manufacturing everything from like ground zero to obviously build it back up. So where we've come back stronger than ever. It's definitely a passion project and something that unfortunately or fortunately I haven't been able to let go and I don't want to let go of. But I'm very excited to see where the new season takes us. The new school year and all the opportunities that then brings across events, across obviously our B2B clients, our B2C clients. We've obviously got our relationship with Callow, which we're extremely excited about. We obviously offer subscription services and so forth as well. So, this new year is something that's very exciting, and we're thrilled to see where the next year takes us.
that whole last 1 minute just makes you sound very entrepreneurial because you started with, there was a flood and we lost everything, but you're still smiling through it and things like that. Like, I just want to go, like, just give me 1 minute where the flood happened and then you got a call. Like, what was that feeling you got when you heard that the whole manufacturing was
Um,
gone?
so it kind of was a slow burn. I got in the car to drive to the warehouse to make sure everything was okay. And I got about halfway there and couldn't get there. So I came home and just stood looking out my balcony and watching, obviously, the floods and stuff roll through. We didn't unfortunately get to the warehouse until I think it was about 2 days after the floods. And by that stage, everything was done. It was gone. And I just stood outside the warehouse and like, what can you do? There's no point crying over spilt milk. There's no point, unfortunately.
Or diluted kombucha?
Yeah, look, I mean, let's be real and let's be honest. I'm sure you understand this. When I was standing outside of the warehouse, it was really a case of, listen, do we walk away? Do we just let it go? I have a team that are relying on their salaries to pay for their families. I've got obviously, their children, and maybe this is my perception of running a business, but I'm here to take as many people on the journey to success as I possibly can. And that was really the option is, do I want to be selfish and walk away from it, or do I want to keep building something with an amazing team? And that was the option I took. And it was just take a deep breath and deal with one problem at a time. And even though the floods was a massive problem, it was just, let's deal with one piece today, one piece tomorrow. And obviously after, 6 to 8 months of that and a few emotions, we're back and we're building on.
No, that sounds like a great way to end this podcast, to be honest. A touch emotional, like very motivational, and I'm very glad that you guys made it because now we can sell you on our platform and
Exactly.
people
Exactly.
they have been loving it. And if you close, Booch down, you would have to buy from competitors. It'll be expensive because you drink kombucha every day. Yeah, so
Right. And there's not as much love in every bottle,
yeah.
especially when you make it yourself.
So to end, final question: if you had to describe Booch in 3 words or more, what would it be?
Oh, memorable, surprise,
Mhm.
and delicious.
Okay. Memorable, surprise, and delicious. So for all our viewers out there, please head on to Color Market or the Booch website and have your first taste of kombucha today. Thank you so much, Blake, for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you and thank you for sharing the story behind Booch and yourself. And we hope to be long-term partners all across the GCC.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much, Denise. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.